Shalom WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah Talk. The portion this week is called Vayera, and it is most famous for the story of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. However, I want to focus in on a little piece of the parsha that it comes before that. In fact, it has to come before that because it's when the angels predict the birth of Isaac. And Isaac's name in Hebrew is Yitzchak, and one of the explanations that's given for why his name is Yitzchak is because of the story that happens at the beginning of this portion when an angel comes and tells Abraham that Sarah is going to bear a child. Now, of course, by this time, the couple is what we would consider very old for childbearing, like 80s and 90s. And so Sarah laughs. Vatitzchak Sarah b'kirba lemor. Sarah laughed to herself, saying, Acharei bloti hayita li edna v'adoni zaken. Now that I've lost the ability and to have enjoyment with my husband so old, or to have pleasure, or edna, to have delight with my husband so old. So the question that I want to ask is, what is she laughing about? It seems like a very odd reaction, quite frankly, for Sarah. And remember now, we hold up Abraham as the symbol of faith and kindness, but Sarah's been with him every step of the way. When God came to Abraham and said, Lech lecha, Sarah up and goes with him. They've traveled all over the world. They've been to Egypt. She's been passed off as this sister wife. They've come back to Canaan. They've split up the land. She sat with him in the tents, making food for passerbys, practicing hachnasat orchim, hospitality. How could it be that she would have so little faith? Could it be that Abraham is so faithful and Sarah is not? And different commentators have different takes on this. Rashi says, he was just Rashi, the French commentator, 1100s, very 11th century, very well regarded. Right? Says, why does she laugh? She doesn't think it's possible. And now she says he's old. Says it's not possible for me. My womb doesn't bear children anymore. He says my breasts have dried up. They can't give forth milk. I'm going to have a kid. Takes it for what it is, a lack of faith, a breakdown of faith. And by the way, look, this is what she's been praying for her whole life. Right? This is why they left Ur Kasdim. When God came and said, Lecha, I'll make you a great nation. And she hasn't been able to have a child. They have not been able to create together, let's say, a child. We already know Abraham has had a child with Hagar, Ishmael. So it's all the weight of this is on her. All the strain and stress of this on her. It's what she's been praying for all her life. There's a kinder interpretation given by Sforno, the Italian commentator, later 16th century. He says, Vatitzchak Sarah, says she assumed that the words of the angel were a blessing, not a prophecy. Right? Why? Because she believed that when such a blessing is given to old people, people who would require a miracle for a blessing to come true, that it's not effective. It's a nice thought, but it's not effective. She considered the kind of rejuvenation required for her to bear a child as equivalent to reviving the dead, mechayeh metim. And such an act, in her opinion, required God's personal attention, not just a prophet, and that the prayer would ultimately not be answered. So she laughed because, at the cruelty of the blessing, right? That she wanted this her whole life. They've wanted this her whole life. It's the fulfillment of God's promise that they could not bring about, or so she felt. And God's not intervening on her behalf for whatever reason. And so the laugh is sort of bitter. But I want to offer a different explanation. It's based, if you read my message today, you saw on what a friend of mine, Daniel Gradus, who founded with his friend Bubu Asaf, the organization Project 24, and they're here visiting us this week with Kibbutz Re'im's civilian emergency team, an amazing group of people and their families, 46 people strong, staying with our families for the week. It's wonderful. And at the gala honoring them all, Daniel said the following, I thought was so profound. He said, we all know we can laugh until we cry. He said, but I didn't know until this year that we can cry until we laugh, that we can shed so many tears that even just a little bit of joy sharing together can make us happy, truly happy amidst all of the difficulty. It's something that I'm sure that the kibbutzniks from Kibbutz Re'im and all around the Otef Gaza, there's, by the way, all 28 kibbutzim and moshavim were brought over to New York or Florida by Project 24. Really amazing project. So it's even possible to cry until you laugh. And I like this interpretation for Sarah in the parsha. She's been crying for decades about her inability to have a child, her lack of a child, their inability to have a child, not only for her own satisfaction as a mother, but because God has placed this upon them, that their job, their role is to be the founder of a great nation, to create the Jewish people, and up until now, they haven't been able to. And she feels responsible, and she feels sad, and she feels stressed. Her failure is not only her failure, their failure is not only their failure, but they feel like they have failed in their mission for God. And I am sure they have cried bitterly. Bitterly. But maybe here we have a case where they have cried so much that it's turned to laughter, that this blessing, maybe it's not bitter tears. Maybe she hears that as a blessing. Maybe she hears it as a prophecy. But however she hears it, the concept, the very idea gives her such joy that she laughs because she's cried so many tears that now it's time to laugh. I think this is such an important idea that we can't forget how to laugh. And Jews have been practicing this our entire existence, right? That we've cried until we've laughed far too many times, walking in the footsteps of our patriarchs and matriarchs. We have also found in the footsteps of Sarah and of Abraham that we have had to cry until we've laughed. And here we are in another one of these times that seems so difficult for us as a Jewish people, what's going on in Israel with anti-Semitism, all of it. It's important that we remember how to laugh, that we come together for gatherings of great joy just as much as we come, maybe even more than we come together for gatherings of terrible mourning and crying out together. I hope we all have occasions to laugh. We're trying to provide them here at the shul, to laugh, to dance, to sing. It's sometimes not easy, but if it's crying and crying that ultimately earns us our laughs, I think we've earned them. And I hope you'll join us for these entertaining simchas and events of laughter and lightheartedness. Because sometimes we just have to cry until we laugh. May we all have many more occasions to laugh until we cry. It's always the preference. That's as good a blessing for the week as any. Shabbat Shalom.